Hello, everybody watching this. I'm so excited to just do a webinar with you all and to just share and really go into depth what a breakthrough session is and how it works and what it looks like. And this is going to be something for clients that are getting ready to go through a breakthrough session. It's going to be for people that are interested in a breakthrough session. We're just going to really spend about an hour just talking about all the techniques, all the ideas, the concepts that go into a breakthrough session. So again, if you don't know me or you haven't met me personally, you're just seeing this, I'm Thomas Worm, and I'm the founder of Mountain Mind Tricks. And so excited. So Mountain Mind Tricks is a company that focuses on delivering mental emotional release to wildland firefighters. So we're bringing this amazing, powerful mental and emotional tool to first responders. I was a wildland firefighter myself for 15 years with the Forest Service, so I have the experience on the ground operations to really understand what the wildland firefighters are going through, and it was through my own healing process, my own, I guess, really journey through post-traumatic stress, through losing someone close to me in fire, that really changed my life and changed me and put me on a path of helping others. So, yeah, so excited to just be here with you and to explain what is the breakthrough session. Okay, there's a lot of content here, but we're gonna really take it like more of a story and why are we here? Okay, why the breakthrough session? The breakthrough session is one of the most powerful and transformative things I've ever experienced in my life. So, in my own journey, I was struggling with physical health. I had physical health issues coming up in my body. I was struggling with suicidal ideations, with post-traumatic stress, with all sorts of mystical experiences happening. So I was really in a place of totally destabilized, working through grief. And I started with acupuncture. That was the first thing I turned to. Is like, okay, I know acupuncture is powerful. I'm gonna do that work. And the acupuncture led me to actually trying out alternative mental health, so NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming. We're going to explain all of that and what that means in a really simple way. Just know that it's really working with the pictures in your mind, your beliefs, and your emotions, and learning how to release them, how to work with them, how to learn the lessons. So, my first experience with mental emotional release was in my master practitioner training, where we traded as students, we traded breakthrough sessions, and it completely changed my life. I remember when I released fear, I opened my eyes and it was the moment I knew from the depth of my heart this was something I had to do with other people. So why are we here? We're here to really empower ourselves and to change our lives and to release the repressed negative emotions, to maybe improve our physical health, maybe to become more aware of who we want to be in life. So you got to look deep inside to yourself. Like, why are you here? Why are you drawn to a breakthrough session? Why are you drawn to alternative therapy? Like, what are you looking for? What is the result you actually want in your life? And I think that's the biggest thing about this process is that it's very results driven. Everything is modeled after people, techniques, that get results. So that's one of the biggest things that I can say is that all of these techniques are so powerful because they've been modeled after the best people in the world at hypnosis, at therapy, at actually driving change on a psychological, even physiological level. So we're gonna go pretty deep. We're gonna go pretty deep here. I'm excited. So why the three minds? Okay, really, we're going to dive into these each pretty in depth. The three minds is our conscious mind, our unconscious, and our highest self. So let's think about, let's say, when you learn to drive, okay, if you can remember that, when you learned to drive, like you went to the driver's ed and you learned all the concepts, you had to really focus on the book and the teacher and like learn the things in writing, right, or in class. And then when you went to go drive, it was like, I mean, for me, I remember when I first got onto the freeway, like I was looking over my shoulder, right? And I'm like veering into like three other lanes, right? Like that was my like, oh, that's not what you're supposed to do. So you have to focus really hard at a conscious level to learn something. And so this is like you're focusing with your mind right here, like, okay, I'm learning to drive, right? Well, eventually once you kind of get it down and maybe you've driven 10 or 15 or 20 times, you're not really thinking as much. And then after a couple years, literally, you can be driving down the freeway and just be lost in your thoughts and completely miss your exit by like 10 exits. You're like, oh, where did I go? I was totally dreaming while I was like, how was I even driving, right? How did I even get here? So many of those experiences. The highest self is more the spiritual aspect or collective consciousness is what I think, Carl Jung would call it, is the collective consciousness. And so we're going to get into that later in this webinar, but really let's focus on the conscious and unconscious mind. The conscious mind is the captain. It's what's directing the whole system in your psyche. Okay. So it's the ego, it's who you think you are, it's your personas. So the kind of the masks you wear at work or in a relationship or with your family. And it's pretty limited. It's really like about 5% of your psychology, of your psyche. The unconscious mind is massive. It's 95%. It's 95% of your mind. And so the conscious mind, you're aware, okay? And then the unconscious mind, you're not aware of it. So we're going to go into depth what the unconscious mind does, but just understand that basically everything, the whole basis of the breakthrough session is that from ages 0 to 7, you don't have a conscious mind, basically. And that everything that happens around you, to you, everything that's said, that's on a TV, that's your entire environment is basically downloaded into your unconscious mind. This is where we get our programs, our beliefs, some of these deep, deep emotions that are passed down to us, right? So I want you to take that in. Like I want you to breathe that in. That the conscious mind, what we think and who we think we are, is only 5% of our psyche. Something like 5 to 7%, right? That's pretty amazing. So again, the conscious mind is the part of your mind responsible for your logical, rational thinking. How you make decisions, how you solve problems, how you focus, ego, persona, we talked about that. So the unconscious mind is the part of your mind responsible for automatic behaviors, emotions, memories. It kind of takes all of your memories and timestamps and then puts them in this timeline. We're going to talk about that later. But everything is there. It's a hard drive. It's like a supercomputer hard drive that basically is looking for patterns. And once it decides there's a pattern or a belief, is another way to say it. Once there's a belief and a pattern around something, it sees something in the environment, labels it, and then runs this whole pattern. Okay. Like, oh, I'm not good enough. And so actually, the unconscious mind is going to filter all these things in your life to make sure you know that you're not good enough. So things are going to show up in your life so your unconscious mind can prove it to yourself. This is why when we change our beliefs, there is so much power in these breakthrough sessions because when we change the beliefs, things outside of you start to change too, because it's really your way of seeing the world starts to change. Really powerful, really, really powerful. So the unconscious mind, we're going to talk about the prime directive. So this is really kind of technical, but we're really going to make it simple. How does your unconscious mind work? Okay, that's the prime directives. Kind of like Star Trek, right? The prime directive. This is like the most important thing. Okay. The unconscious mind seeks to preserve and protect the physical body. Okay. Have you ever been in a situation where like maybe somebody threw a ball or something came flying towards you, or especially in fire, something kind of crazy happens in your environment and your body just reacts and you're like, I don't even know how I did that. How did I even live through something like that? Or how did that happen? So that's what this is talking about is that your unconscious mind is so tied to the body and protection of the physical, emotional, mental well-being. So a lot of times this aspect, we create these ideas that we think protect us. And a lot of times we have these like secondary gains that are so primal, so deep from our childhood. Like, well, if I believe I'm not good enough, it protects me from actually being hurt or thinking that I am good enough and then letting someone down or letting myself down, you see. So this way of protection kind of it's tied to these secondary gains that we all have in our life. So let's go to the next one because there's a couple here we're going to dive deep into. So the unconscious mind regulates and maintains the bodily functions. Okay, so same thing. It's kind of just the body system as part of the unconscious mind. Okay, that's why these things, these breakthrough sessions, we're going to talk about it later, are so tied to physical health. There's a lot of things going on in physical health. It's actually probably something mental, emotional we need to deal with. In fact, uh, yeah, 90 to 95% of all disease is mental and emotional stress related. So, in other words, it's real, it's in the body, but the root cause is actually in the mind. And so that's when we work with these breakthrough sessions in physical health. Say there's a leaky gut issue or a skin rash going on or even more serious stuff like actual diseases. These things are caused by something that's mental and emotional, and and it's real in the body. And you need to go to the doctor for some things, right? You need allopathic medicine, and maybe you need alternative medicine and allopathic and a breakthrough session, right? So very powerful here within the body. One of the things I've seen in my own clients is, people that are having like swollen lymph nodes, being in and out of the hospital for fevers, like kind of things that the doctors are like, we don't know what's wrong with you, but something is completely gone after a breakthrough session. Skin rashes clearing up, insomnia clearing up, migraines completely gone after these breakthrough sessions. So very powerful at the physiological level. Okay. So another one is that the unconscious mind processes, codes, and stores all your experiences. Again, it's like a hard drive. I want you to think of this more of a computer way, like everything is stored like a hard drive. Everything that's ever happened to you is there in the unconscious mind. So the unconscious mind seeks the familiar and comfortable and establishes habits and patterns of behavior. So, like I was saying before, that all these beliefs, these emotions, these patterns from being a child, these childhood patterns that are given to you from your parents, maybe from church or school, friends even. These patterns are like automatic programs, like computer programs that are, there's a context, like, okay, this program runs when this happens. And there's process, like this is how it happens. And then there's some structure of this is when, why, and how it happens. Okay, so it all adds up to these programs. And in a really good way to think about this is like if you've ever been triggered before, okay? So one of the biggest ways that baggage is created, and the word baggage, it's more like our issues, emotional issues. Some might call it that. But baggage is like you're hauling around these bags full of like history, right? Like, oh, that person has a lot of baggage coming into the relationship. So you've probably heard that before. The term baggage is really just referring to things in the mind and the mental and emotional bodies that are unresolved. Unresolved beliefs, unresolved emotions, unresolved events. So when you get triggered, and this is so powerful because a lot of times when you get triggered, somebody says something or you see something in the environment and your mind labels it. And then you have this crazy reaction, like you get really angry and you scream at somebody or you throw something, you're just like totally emotional, right? But it was just like, you know, something little happened. Like I'll give you an example for me personally. And this is just it's silly, but it's such a good example. When I was a teenager, one of my best friends, we skateboard all the time, and he spit on me one day, and I was just like, teenagers being teenagers. But I lost it. I got so angry. I broke my skateboard. Like I threw stuff. I just kind of went off the rails. So that is an example where like a little tiny thing, like somebody spitting on you, like completely derails you. Like that's baggage. Like there's a deep-seated anger there. And what's happening is that there's the trigger, but that trigger is connected to all the things in the past. So in the psychology of the person, it's not just that one event, it's literally lighting up every single event labeled as bullying or being hurt or angry or sad. It's lighting up the entire timeline. So the body doesn't know that it's just that one event, it's all of the events all at once. So when we clear when we clear these patterns at the unconscious level, it clears all of them. So we don't get triggered anymore. Pretty cool, right? So the unconscious mind facilitates communication between the conscious mind and the body and between individuals. So it's all about communication. Everything really at the deepest levels, like communication with the self. How are you talking to yourself? How are you talking to your body? How are you talking to others? How are you talking about your future? It's so important. So a lot of this comes down to communication and your languaging. So one thing with the unconscious mind is that it doesn't, and it does not process negatives. So in other words, when you say, I don't want that, what you're saying to your body is you do want that, and you're actually starting to create that reality. What's so interesting about this is that your mind, these thoughts are just thoughts at first, and thoughts are energies. They have a lot of power, but these thoughts become feelings. So now there's chemistry involved in your body. And then the feelings become beliefs, right? If we think something and feel something over and over and over again, we start to tell a story. And then that becomes a belief, which becomes a pattern. So when start having patterns of communication or stories. So it's all about communication and actually learning to change the story and basically rewrite the script at the unconscious level. It's a lot of what we're doing in the breakthrough. Really powerful. Communication so key in so many different ways. So the unconscious mind processes and communicates through symbols, metaphors, images. This one's really about think about your dreams. If you're a dreamer, you've had some wild dreams. You're like, I don't even understand what that means. Like, I don't get it. It's just all this crazy stuff. I'm in a house, then I'm in the forest, and I'm here, and it's like you're kind of skipping all around. There's all these different people and things. But what's happening is the unconscious mind is actually telling you things about your body, about your day potentially, or really about things that need to be resolved in symbols and metaphors. And so the dreams aren't actually like what you think it is. It's actually much deeper meaning. It's all about what does it actually mean? What does it actually mean? And so the unconscious mind loves symbols, it loves stories, it loves metaphors. And actually, that's one of the best ways to communicate to the unconscious mind directly is through metaphors. And it's actually really good. That's why the stories children's stories are so powerful because they're speaking directly to the unconscious mind. And it's a lot of what hypnosis does as well. One of the techniques we use with the breakthrough session. So all about symbols, metaphors, images. Okay. The unconscious mind seeks to resolve conflict and maintain balance and harmony. So it's kind of like, again, this computer program that's trying to make sure everything's balanced and in harmony. So if something's out of balance, it's actually gonna start moving things to make sure that you feel like you're in balance. And a lot of times these programs make you even more out of balance. So the unconscious mind seeks to resolve the conflict, but sometimes it actually hides the conflict. So you think you're resolved, but you're really not. And a lot of times those things that go on for a really long time actually show up later in the body. Okay. This is really interesting. The maintains balance and harmony. So that's its goal. It's basically like the path of least resistance is what the unconscious mind wants to achieve that harmony internally with the least resistance. So the unconscious mind constantly learns, adapts, and evolves in response to new experiences, information. So again, it is smarter and has more information going on than you could ever imagine. Basically, the unconscious mind has 20 million bits of information. Okay, 20 million bits of information coming into your psychology every second, 20 million bits. Now, what happens is from the unconscious, for us to have a coherent reality, there's a filtering process. Our values, our beliefs, our memories, our thoughts, our feelings, our experiences. The unconscious mind filters 20 million bits through these values, feelings, thoughts, emotions, all the way down to 126 bits of information. So 20 million to 126, that's crazy, right? So what we see, what we feel like in our hard 3D reality is literally just a fraction. It's a decimal of what's actually happening. So when we work with these breakthrough sessions, we're actually changing the 126 bits of information you're opening to. You're opening to a new 126 bits of information. So that's why things, like I said earlier, begin to change around you. Synchronicities, like you start having experiences of different manifestations, or, like somebody did a breakthrough session and, they had a huge debt that just disappeared. Like the bank just gave them a letter that was like, your debt is forgiven. Like that's impossible, but it happened. So things like this happen after breakthrough sessions because we're changing the 126 bits of information that you're seeing. Deep, I know. Okay. I know you're still with me because we're getting into the good stuff. Okay. So the highest self is the spiritual mind. It's your mind beyond the conscious, unconscious mind. You could look at it as your soul, maybe your Holy Spirit, from more of a Christian perspective, but it's more like this source of your intuition, your creativity, your spirituality, your purpose. There's an aspect of you it's in a higher dimension or the spiritual realm or spiritual world. It's this aspect of you that's connected to the highest power. So very spiritual. Uh, Maybe all that is. Maybe you like the labels God or Buddha or universe or higher power. It doesn't really matter. It's about your highest self and what that means to you and what that higher power is. Some sort of, from an idea of a quantum physics, it's really like that everything is consciousness, that there's this collective field, at the Planck scale, there's this collective field of information. You could look at it that way as well, that your highest self is connected to really just about everything. It's kind of your conduit to infinite source, love, light, all those spiritual terms. So why is the highest self important? The highest self is, I think the best way to explain it is that the highest self is this parental guardian spirit that is total perfection. So when we actually invoke or ask the highest self to be here, there's this, it comes over your body as an energy above your body. Then we can actually begin working within, asking the highest self to cleanse the spiritual body, the mental body, the emotional body. And that's more of like a spiritual way of coming into a breakthrough session. We'll use the Hawaiian techniques like ho'oku'u, higher self therapy. So we actually bring in the highest self to actually do therapy in the body from an energetic level. Very powerful process. So there's a higher power, there's a spirituality or a quantum physics aspect to this. We can talk about it anyway, it doesn't matter. Really comes down to energy and that everything is energy. That's one of the main concepts is being open to energy. I think it's really important if you're looking at a breakthrough session that it's kind of, you don't have to be, but it's something you're probably going to be open to after the breakthrough session, honestly, because your mind's going to be opened a little bit more to all that is, to some sort of spirituality. I see that very often in the breakthrough sessions. So it's an important piece. Now, why these breakthrough sessions talk about spirituality is that there's the conscious mind talks to the unconscious mind talks to the highest self. Now, if the unconscious mind has a lot of blocks, a lot of baggage, a lot of limiting beliefs, emotions that are unresolved, these unresolved events, it's kind of like that the telephone line to the highest self is kind of dirty and clogged up. Okay. So we don't really get those intuition hits. We don't really feel that gut hit, or we don't really hear the voice that's like, no, maybe you should do this with your life. Or those feelings where you're like, oh, this doesn't feel right. You know what I mean? Like that intuition, that purpose, that spiritual aspect of being a human, we get separated, basically. Yes, not that we can get separated, but it's like it's harder to connect to the highest self. So what the breakthrough session does is it cleans that connection. The breakthrough session actually cleans that connection so you can have a higher, cleaner connection to your highest self or to your spirituality, whatever that is. Really powerful. So the four bodies is another more of a holistic approach that we take with the breakthrough sessions, is that we're looking at the physical body, the emotional body, the mental body, and the spiritual body, and that a lot of times something in the mental body, like a really strong belief, is actually going to trickle all the way down into the emotional body and create the chemistry in the physical body. Okay, so even something spiritual or energy can trigger something in the mental body, which cascades all the way down to the physical. So that's why when we work with the higher self, we're working at the highest level in the energy, and so it's going to trickle down all through all the other bodies, all the way down to the physical. So mental emotional release is amazing, and it's an important technique, and it's really working at the mental and emotional. Sometimes there's things in the spiritual we really need to take care of. So so important that there's this idea of the four bodies. Okay, we're going to kind of go through them in a little bit more depth. Okay, physical body, tangible part, our organs, muscles, our tissues, all these things, right? Okay, pretty self-explanatory. Really, the focus, nutrition, fitness, blood work, like these things, so important to really take on our health. So it's really about our physical health. Okay, and our emotional body, it refers to your emotions, your feelings, knowing that these emotions can absolutely, it's like, I think that actually the best way to explain this is that when you have a picture in your mind, okay, and a lot of times you'll hear like, oh, that picture's worth a million words, right? Okay, well, the way the physical brain works, from my understanding, is that it takes a picture from your mind, something you see in your mind, and it decodes it into peptides and hormones and all the chemistry. So when you have a picture in your mind that's not so pleasant or that's really emotional, you're actually creating the chemistry in your physical body. So again, that's why the emotions affect the physical body. So important to have this mind body connection, okay? Pretty strong in these breakthrough sessions, this idea of mind body connection. The mental body refers to your thoughts, your beliefs, your attitudes, your cognitive processes, learning. Um, it's so important, the mental aspect of this, because the the way you think about something actually creates that reality. The way you see something, the way you value something, everything you think about something is actually creating that reality. So again, this really comes back down to our perception is a projection. So what you're seeing is a projection of kind of what you believe. It's really wild to think about that. And again, we're going from that 20 million bits of information down to 126. And that whole process from our reality is a projection perception. What we perceive is actually a projection or an interpretation of reality. It's not actually reality. So really powerful. The mental body is probably one of the most powerful bodies that we have, because the mind, when we look at a deeper, more esoteric teachings, everything is mind. The entire universe is the mental plane. So when we learn to work with the mind, we really learn to really work with our reality in a powerful and empowering way. The spiritual body refers to the sense of purpose, meaning connection to the greater self. The spiritual health and well-being emphasizes the practice such as meditation, prayer, connection to nature, grounding, these things that are, I think the term woo-woo is completely gone in our culture at this point, and if it's not, then you're probably not even watching this, right? So yes, meditation, prayer, divine alignment, connecting with source, with God, all these things, raising our vibration, ascending, whatever you want to call it. We're talking about aligning our chakras, aligning our meridians, and connecting with our highest self. That's the way I would look at it. And the spiritual body refers to that energetic body, our auras, our chakras, our meridians, these things that are the energy. So it's really like our energetics of our body. And again, everything's energy. So when we work at the spiritual level, we're really working with all four bodies. So powerful when we look at the spiritual level. When you're open, your mind is open enough to work at a spiritual level, you get really powerful results. Really powerful results. So I'm gonna take some water here. Wholeness. This is really important because I think our world has so many times, when you look at the news or things going on in life, it's like all about trying to separate people from each other or separate us from God or source or spirit. And so there's this separation, or we think that we're so different from everybody around us. But really, wholeness is we're all connected, that all is one. Every esoteric, every spiritual teaching will talk about this. But really, we're talking about this holistic health is talking about harmony and harmonizing. So I think a really beautiful way to think about this is that balance. I actually don't like that word very much because it means it's like static, like perfect balance. Like that's kind of impossible almost in a way. Like perfect balance, it's static, it's stuck in perfect, like 50-50%. Okay, very rare in nature. Whereas harmony is kind of this cycle and rhythm and moving, and it's, like the tides, they go in and out, but it's in harmony. There's no like resistance, there's nothing in the way. The ocean, the animals, the life knows and it feels that harmony, that cycle and rhythm of in and out with the tides, right? This is a lot of times how life is. So even though we get pulled this way or we get pulled that way, it's actually like a dichotomy. When in reality, we need both sides. We need light and dark. We need masculine, feminine. We need all of those aspects of ourselves because at each side, okay, let's say masculine, feminine, there's actually like a higher level idea that unifies or creates a wholeness. And a higher level idea, masculine, feminine would be like oneness or unity consciousness, right? The good thing of this is a triangle or a trinity. Why this is important is that we need to come to a place that where we're restoring our sense of wholeness in the body. And a lot of times that means not resisting these dichotomies or cycles and rhythms and just trusting and surrendering and being exactly who we want to be. And this wholeness is more of a state of being, a beingness. So it's a little bit hard to wrap some language around wholeness, but this is what you will feel after a breakthrough session. You will feel whole again. One of the things I've seen so many times, especially with the wildland firefighters I work with, is that when there's these traumatic events that are unresolved. In other words, they're kind of on replay or like a classic, post-traumatic stress issue. I'm like, the person's having this nightmare or having this thought or having this image over and over and over again. Well, from an energy level, you drop off a piece of yourself in that moment, in a high stress emotional moment. You kind of drop a piece of yourself off energetically, and it's just kind of spinning. And it's just spinning in that time, in that space, and it's just kind of locked in that memory. And it's just like because it's unresolved. It hasn't learned the lesson yet. So when we clear these events, the baggage, the negative emotions, the limiting beliefs, what happens is that the lessons learned and that energy that's stuck in that moment actually comes back to you and comes into your body and is like I see so many clients, they take that deep breath after some sort of trauma release and like, wow, I feel whole again. You hear that so many times. So it's about unifying our energy and coming back to the center. Really important. The wholeness, very important. So the prism idea, okay? This is so interesting because when we talk about the four bodies, it's like from the spiritual body or the highest self comes the highest self directs energy down into the spiritual body, through the mental body, emotional body, physical body. And okay, if a prism's really dirty, it's not going to reflect light very much. It's not going to refract, it's going to be kind of distorted, right? And what happens is that this energy passing through the prism is really stuck with traumas, really like stuck emotions like fear, sadness, hurt, anger, guilt, all these major emotions, limiting beliefs like core wounds, core wounds like maybe that you're not good enough or I'm unlovable or these things that are really big core wounds deep in the psyche. What happens is the prism or the whole system gets kind of there's baggage, it gets a little dirty. And so this energy from the highest self isn't really reaching the physical body the way it's supposed to. And you can look at this as the acupuncture or Chinese medicine perspective, that it's like there's not enough qi getting into like the liver or into the lungs or the heart or the stomach or something like that, right? So, and it's because of the disturbance in the unconscious mind, basically, is the best way I can explain that, is that this energy from the highest self coming through all four bodies is getting distorted somewhere, most likely in the mental emotional bodies, sometimes in the spiritual, sometimes in the physical too. Sometimes there's like an injury or there's something in the physical body that's an issue as well. um, is this I hope this is making sense. This is really deep, like your limiting beliefs is a dirty prism, and the way that the light, the life force energy shows up in the body is directly affected by your limiting beliefs, your emotions. Very powerful. I think one of the best, if you want to go deeper in this, is like that book, The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton and epigenetics, and that whole field of science explaining how literally your cells are affected by energy and environment first and foremost, and that your energy and environment dictate your health in a lot of ways. And I think Bruce, what he'll say, what you'll hear him say in interviews is that it's not so much the environment, like, of course, toxins and all these things have a role, of course, at the physical level, but it's actually your interpretation of the environment is creating the internal stress, which is creating the sickness in the cells. So when we clean up the internal conflict, all of a sudden this energy comes back to the cell and it regains this natural ability to heal itself. That's what we're talking is that natural ability to heal is somehow distorted because of some sort of belief or feeling that's stuck. So again, it's almost like, and you can see in the prism, right? When we're talking about this light coming through a prism, you get the rainbow, right? You would get all the chakras. We get the meridians from a Chinese medicine perspective. Like your highest self beams light into your mental body. The light is refracted based upon your beliefs. And as the light travels into your emotional body, the light is further refracted by your emotions. Finally, the full spectrum of light arrives inside the physical body as life force energy and chakras. Super powerful. Super powered. Like, I want you to put this in your mind and think about it. Like, wow, like, is my energy actually showing up at 100%? So again, life force energy or chi is believed to flow through the pathways of the body. Each organ is associated with all these things. So sometimes an imbalance or blockage in the chi or energy can result in a physical or emotional symptoms. So again, this is really just tying this into more of a holistic approach of looking more of a Chinese medicine or potentially a yogic kind of chakra energy system, right? That it's the beliefs are affecting your body. So one of the people that are so powerful in this realm is Dr. Joe Dispenza, and what he talks about is when your heart is incoherent, you are incoherent. So one of the things is bringing coherence into your chakras and into your body. Like when your chakras are coherent, or in other words, they're in harmony, that your entire system, all your organs, your mind, your emotions, your spiritual body is in alignment. So that's why this prism idea of energy coming through the whole system and like refracting, but also like how are you showing up in your chakras? Are they stuck? Are they spinning the wrong way? Are they doing weird things? Are they misshaped? Like it's more like how's the energy in your body showing up? So the more congruent and harmonized you are in your mind, the healthier your body is going to be. So again, I know I'm like hammering this because it's literally that important of mind body connection. Okay, one of the things about the breakthrough session is that we remove the root cause of your energy imbalance. So mm, the breakthrough session goes, it's 8 hours. It's 8 hours of work. So it's intensive. And a thing that we start with is a detailed personal history. And so we talk for 3 to 4 hours. So what we do is we look at the stories of your life. And as a practitioner, I'm kind of looking at the context, like, okay, what was happening around that story? Then and all the other stories. And then I'm looking at the process, like how did that happen? What's going on in that story? How does it match this story? How does this story over here kind of sound like that one? And I'm kind of looking for the structure like A plus B equals C. Like, okay, when you get triggered, this is the thoughts that happen, and then this is the emotion. And now you believe this about yourself. So in the detailed personal history, yeah, it may feel a little bit like therapy in a way, like we're telling the stories of the past, but we're really looking at the process and structure and context of all that information. Like, and what we're doing is we're looking at all these different problems and all these different stories. And what's even deeper than that? What's even deeper than that? What's the one belief that ties together all of these problems? Okay. So it's kind of like I want you to think of like a spider web. And of course, we have this beautiful design with the spider web. And at the very center is connected to everything. So if you pull out that center, it actually pulls the whole spider web. Does that make sense? So that's what we're going for. We want to find the centerpiece, the root causes causing all of the problems in all four bodies. That's what we're looking for in the breakthrough. Then we begin to do some of the release work and begin the actual release process. The actual release process can be an hour, 30 minutes. It can be 2 hours, an hour to 2 hours of actual release work. Then we're at that point, we're actually focusing on the future. We're done. We're going, stories are over, it's changed, it's released. Now we're going into the future. So the alternative therapy, the breakthrough session facilitates wholeness by undoing the root cause belief. So many times I've seen my clients, they get to the root cause and they release it and they come back to now and they open their eyes and you're like, just have a profound learning that's just like, wow, it's not my anger to have. And they're so congruent in that. They're so like, yeah, that's not my sadness to carry anymore. That's like 10 generations ago. It doesn't even resonate anymore. It's just gone. But they have a new belief of like, and now I see I can love myself, or I feel good enough to be here now. It's that fast. And the thing is that when we change our beliefs again, we change our reality, we change how we perceive what's going on all around us. So many times I've seen that. So the breakthrough session utilizes neurolinguistic programming. Okay, that's really it's not it's a long word that doesn't make sense to anybody, and that's okay. Basically I want you to think of it, it's a model of people that came together and modeled the best therapists, the best hypnotherapists, the people that were the best at making change at the psychological level. Okay, so how did they do it? Like Virginia Satir is like the family therapist model that is used highly in NLP. So, for instance, we do a parts integration. You'll see a lot of times in life you'll have a conflict of like, wow, I really want this in my life, but the other side of me, like, I really don't want that. Like, and now there's this internal conflict that's like, I don't even know what I want anymore because one side wants this, the other side wants that. To the point, this can be like really serious for people. Like, it's like, I want to be in a relationship, but I really don't, or um, I really want this career, but I really don't. You see how these parts can be like actually a huge internal conflict. Well, NLP models people that learn how to, from a therapeutic level, actually integrate those. So integration of like taking both parts and integrating them into the heart, into a higher level idea. Again, the Trinity idea, right? And so these two parts are coming together to merge into one, creating a higher level idea, a higher level of understanding that's more in harmony, more wholeness. So that's an example of an NLP technique. The hypnosis, where it's like guided meditation in a way, but what we're doing is we're inducting the client into like delta theta brainwaves. And what's happening is basically we're taking you into that state where it's like you're dreaming, but you're awake, but you're not really sure. Okay. And at that point, the unconscious mind is really susceptible to new beliefs. Okay. So as a practitioner, we're going to work together and talk about those beliefs. But in that state, I'm going to be reading you beliefs. I'm going to be helping you install new strategies. Like we're releasing things with the NLP, with the hypnosis, we're installing new ways of being. Okay. The mental emotion release technique is really it's like hypnosis. It's from NLP as well, but it's basically we're getting in touch with your timeline. Okay. And then we're going back to the very first time you felt anger or sadness or fear. We're going all the way back to the very first time and releasing the first time. So this is like where it does get weird because it could be in the womb during birth, it could be past life, it could be genealogical, it could be when you're 7 years old, it could be when you were 20. It just doesn't, it's more about how the unconscious mind has organized it. But the biggest thing is that we go to the root cause the very first time. And when we release that, it releases the whole timeline. And so it's not about releasing one event, it's about releasing all of the events associated with anger, all of the events associated with sadness. So you can see when we go through anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, shame, anxiety, any other emotion you've ever heard of, we can do that too. It's not just getting rid of sadness the one time, it's all of the times. So, and it's not that you're never going to be sad again, it's that you're never going to have that unwarranted, like crazy response of shutting down or getting super angry or being really high anxiety. Like it's just gone. Seen that so many times. Anxiety just gone. It happened to me personally in my breakthrough session when I released fear. I remember I opened my eyes and was just like, wow, I can breathe again. I didn't realize I wasn't breathing for like 10 years. You know what I mean? Like actually breathing. Like it was wow, I can breathe again. My body felt different. I felt a huge shift, and that's when I knew, like, oh, okay, this is really powerful. This really does make change at a very deep level very quickly. So I think with all of this, one of the most important things is coming to the idea that you're in charge of your mind and therefore your results, really, therefore your reality. So all of these techniques help you become in charge of yourself, of your mind, of your reality. So I want to be really clear. The breakthrough session, I'm not doing anything to you. This is not something I do to you. This is a total do with process. In other words, I'm guiding you through a process of remembering how to heal yourself. And that's the best way to explain it. I'm guiding you through a process in remembering on how to heal yourself because The mind is that powerful. You change a belief and it changes all the way through the body, just like that. Really amazing. I've seen so many transformations, miracles. That's that's the only word that can explain what I've seen in my practice is the miracles, like people changing. Like I think, so commonly it's like, oh, I love myself now. That's the one that gets me every time. Like, wow, like you literally 5 minutes ago, like were really doubting or in so much fear, or hated yourself, and now it's like, no, I can love myself now. And sometimes there's a practice or an effort or something that has to go into the integration process, but it's like a total change. So powerful, so amazing, honestly. It just blows my mind. Every session blows my mind, and that's why I love it. So one of the things is that this is all complementary medicine. And I don't practice medicine. I'm not a doctor. I think we're going to get into that a little bit later, like kind of scope of practice, but I'm not a doctor. I'm not a licensed professional. I'm a master practitioner of NLP and hypnosis, mental emotional release, and I do energy work. So with that comes, I think the clients I've seen be the most successful is that they've kind of built a team. And that team can be totally different. It could be a yoga teacher, it could be a chiropractor, it could be acupuncturist, it could be a medical doctor, it could be a surgeon. It doesn't matter, but you're kind of building this team for you. Like a therapist are amazing, amazing team members. Like therapy is amazing for some people. Absolutely, highly recommend therapy, like traditional therapy. Um, what I have seen is acupuncture, breakthrough sessions, breath work, complementary. So all these things, like I'm just part of your team. It's all about you, the client, whatever you want, whoever you want on your team. So we're complementary medicine. It's not, you know, you see the word here, alternative therapy. Yes, but actually, I think a better word is complementary therapy because it's really a complement to traditional therapy, a complement to, one of the things let's explain it this way. If you went to the medical doctor and got blood work done, and the blood work said, okay, you're low on this and you're low on this, and it's kind of pointing to like this health condition. Well, we can actually go through the manuals and be like, okay, that health condition is tied to this emotion and this belief, and this is exactly okay. And it started here, and now it's like, okay, now we got the root cause of the health issue. Let's release that. Absolutely. Blood work turns around. So there's so many ways to work with these in harmony with other practitioners. Really important. How does lasting change occur? Okay, one of the biggest things, there's four stages here. There's release work, okay? There's a visioning process, and there's action and focus. And I think one of the biggest things is that you have to be dedicated and committed to changing. Like when you work with me, one, I don't put up with your shit. You're gonna do your work, right? You're gonna be committed. You're gonna do your stuff. Like when I task you, you're gonna do it in a way that's like, and I'm not demanding. Believe me, I'm coming at you this way because it's that important that you do the action and focus. So the thing is that the breakthrough session builds momentum. Okay, and actually I'm gonna rewind a little bit. The way the problem is held in, the limiting beliefs, the emotions, the way they're like held in, there's amount of energy there. There's a specific amount of energy. Okay. The breakthrough session breaks that apart. Okay. It totally breaks it apart. And now there's this like you may be about equal to okay, now you've undone everything that's about equal energy of new kind of there's a little bit of momentum maybe. Now I've got to start visioning. Okay, so looking to the future, what do I want to be in my life? What do I want to have in my life? Like, what do I want to be doing with my life? Who do I want to become? Okay, we're visioning, we're looking out to the future. Now, the action and focus really starts pedaling the wheel. Like really, this is where you start building the momentum to truly completely overcome the problem. And I think the best way I like to explain this is that you, through the action of focus, like that's where you completely rewire your neurology, your brain, your whole body, your whole nervous system to be a new state of being. So it's the integration. Like, so that's why I'm so hard on like some of the tasking is like you have to do this. And it's nothing hard usually. It's like you need to read this book, you need to do this journaling, you need to do these meditations, you need to do this specific things. And sometimes it can be a lot. It can be like you need to leave your job. You need to do something like, and I can't tell you to leave your job, but what I'm saying is like that's an environment and energy issue that has to change for you to actually overcome the problem completely. So sometimes there's these huge lifestyle changes. And with that comes this idea of being a cause and effect. Like, are you, do you have reasons that you don't want to change? Or are you like, you want to get results and you're taking charge and you're like, no, I'm going to change and I'm in charge. I'm in charge of my mind, therefore my results. And I think that's the biggest thing to this whole process is knowing that at a certain level, you created the problem. You did. Nobody else. There's no one to blame. And when this, always have to put a caveat here, when it's like with major, major trauma, especially sexual abuse, like the person's gonna say, like, how in the world did I cause that? Like that, no, you didn't cause the stock market to crash, you didn't cause the sexual abuse, you didn't cause these major things, but you did cause these problems inside the way you reacted to it. That's really that's pretty that's pretty tough to hear. It's your reaction, it's your interpretation, it's you are still creating the problems internally. So that's one of the biggest things is are you are you willing to take responsibility for your life and say, yes, I created this. Now, what this does is this opens the door for you to say, I'm done, I'm letting go, I release this, I'm ready. And that's exactly what happens. So when you're at cause and you give yourself the liberty to say, yes, I did create this problem, it gives you the ability to undo the problem. Okay. So important. Like I would say that's the one thing that you have to be a cause. You've got to be a cause. Otherwise, like you should just go to therapy for the rest of your life. That's literally that's the best way I could like you're a really good candidate to go to therapy forever. Unless you can come to cause and be like, you know what? I'm ready to change this about myself. That's when you're empowered. That's when you're ready to totally and absolutely change your life in a way that is miraculous. Yeah. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper. I know we're getting on here on time. I want to be respectful of all your time watching this. So the release, okay, the alternative therapy, the breakthrough session, the mental emotion release, the Hawaiian techniques, higher self therapy, Ho'oponopono, parts integration, all these things we've kind of talked about, hypnosis, like release. It's basically the breakthrough session process, okay? We're releasing the old stories and then we're going to start visioning, okay? The vision is really, it's a journaling process. It's looking to the future. Who do I want to become? What do I want to do with my life? What do I want to have in my life? Okay, and it's like really writing things out and getting clear. Like what I can tell you is that we do a process called Avatar Aim SMART Goal. Every time I go back to my avatar, because I go back to it maybe every month or two, and just take a look like, okay, where am I at my goals? Every time, every time, anything I've written in there has occurred and happened, and I'll check off those goals and go to the next one. And it's just like very, very powerful process. The visioning totally changes everything. The action, this is like where you have to go out in the world and do the thing you're going to say. a lot of times this comes down to setting boundaries and changing your lifestyle. So I think honestly, the hardest thing for everybody to do is like maybe setting boundaries with loved ones, setting boundaries with family, setting boundaries is like really hard for some people to actually speak their truth to the ones around them and say, this doesn't work for me anymore. Can we, this is what's good for me, and this thing's not working for me anymore. So I need your support in changing this. Otherwise, I'm going to leave the situation. So it can be really hard to set boundaries, and it takes resolve and it takes practice. And it's something that's so important because once you set that boundary, once you change that lifestyle, it's like everything changes. Your environment and energy affect your cells first and foremost. So if something's not working in your environment, you can just set boundaries. It's going to change your life. Okay. The focus is like the action focus is still related, but like how much focus do you have on your daily routine? How much focus do you have on your language pattern? How much focus do you have? And that's why meditation, like especially silent meditation, like zazen or Zen meditation is so important because you're quieting the mind. So during the day, you can say, "Oh, I saw that pattern. Nope, I'm coming back to here. Oh, I saw my mind starting to do that one thing again. No, I'm coming back to here." So you have to focus, and that's one of the biggest things after the breakthrough session. The I feel like the neurology is there a little bit. In other words, like the brain's going to try and fire these old patterns, and it's going to be like you were never aware of them before, though. That's the beautiful thing is that the breakthrough session makes you aware of the patterns so you can stop. So after the breakthrough, sometimes there's some things that may be firing still a little bit, and you're like the focus allows you to be like, oh, that's the thing, I'm coming back to here. Oh, I was about to like react there, but like no, I'm coming back to here. And after a little while, like that just disappears and you're just a different person. You have a different reality, you have a different personality, like you're much more in alignment with your highest self. You're manifesting, you are healthy, you're strong. Like it's just like, it's like working out, right? You can't just work out once. You've got to keep working out. You've got to stay focused on the results that you want to obtain in your life. So it's so important. Okay, scope of practice. Okay, what we work with, deep sadness, anxiety, rage, phobias, migraines, injuries, feeling stuck, feeling lost, trauma. Um, what we don't really work with is like clinical depression, like clinical, like you've been on medications for all your life, you've been diagnosed as like a really high level clinical depression, probably not the right fit. Any personality disorders, schizophrenia, mania, those kinds of things, I'm not going to work with you. That's just not my scope of practice. Suicide is interesting because suicide ideations is one thing, but as soon as you start like writing a letter or like visualizing how you're going to do it, that's kind of the next level. And it's just, I've worked with suicidal ideations many times, but it's like as soon as it gets to a certain level, it's like you've got to start taking extra steps, and we've got to start talking about other practitioners. Complex PTSD, like combat veterans or people with severe like abuse that was like ritualistic abuse or things that are really complex. Like I deal with post-traumatic stress and firefighters all the time. That's kind of what I do. So, but the complex is like if you're diagnosed complex PTSD, like it's really serious and you've got probably a lot of health issues going on with it. Like it's just a huge thing and probably not going to work with you. Cancer is something that is, uh, I can't work with you, but we have multiple practitioners that I know that will and have had amazing success at that. So, some things, yeah, I can't work with you just legally, and from that point. Uh, Traumatic brain injuries. I think yeah, you've got to figure that out at a physical level first with other practitioners like hyperbolic chambers, other modalities. I know there's some LED thing like LED light systems that are working really well for people. Really model the NFL players and what they're doing for their brain injuries, and then we could probably talk about doing a breakthrough session. So, as well as like long-term SSRI use is um, it's case by case, but probably not going to work with. It's probably just not a good fit. Probably not a good fit. So also just know that just reach out to me. Just reach out and see if you're a good fit or not. That's it. Everything's a case by case scenario. So um, yeah, these are some of the things that we work with and the things that we don't. Okay. So if you want to learn more, I invite you to go to mountainmindtricks.com. Schedule a discovery session. Click the button, just schedule a discovery session. You can talk. My discovery sessions are a free 1 hour call just to talk about, what questions do you have about the breakthrough? How can I help you? How can I serve you? What are you struggling with? What's it all look like? We can go way deeper with some of these concepts and some of the ideas, some of the client stories that I've seen. So just go to the website, hit the discovery button, and we can go from there. And um, this is just to be really clear. Like, I'm a master practitioner of mental emotion release, and I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. I'm none of those things. Okay. So just be really clear, I'm not a clinical licensed professional. And so that's why there's certain things that I can't work with. From like if I'm going to speak to a doctor and if I'm going to speak to a therapist or somebody that is clinical, I would say I'm a stress reduction coach. That's the best way to explain what I do. When that stress is, it's internal. And there's external stress too, but really talking about the internal stress. Okay. So if you really want to read more, uh, there's the Mental Emotional Release book by Dr. Matt James. He's the one that certified me. He's a doctor in psychology. You can find on Amazon Mental Emotional Release book. Highly recommend. And in fact, if we do work together, it's required reading just so you can really get a good depth on some of these concepts. And if you want to go a little bit deeper on some blogs and some of the studies, nlp.com/what is NER. The two studies that I can think of right now with MER, mental emotion release, was a really powerful clinical study with clinical depression. And there was, so it was depression with mental emotional release and then depression with traditional CBT therapy, I believe it was. Now, these numbers aren't quite exact, so don't quote me, but basically the uh, traditional therapy, if you will, showed like a 60 to 70% people had results. They improved. So like 60 to 70%, somewhere around there. Uh, and then there was like a 10% rehospitalization and like a 15% relapse, something like that. So about like 50% of people like really got like did really well with therapy, which is amazing. Awesome. With the mental emotional release group, there was 100%. 100% of the people in the study had results, had relief from their depression, and there was 0% relapse. It's a clinical study. Every time I say that out loud, I'm kind of speechless because it's like really, it is that powerful. The other study they did was in Jamaica with teens, with like young adults that were in gangs that were having a really hard time with just kind of rolling out of, transitioning out of school into like being an adult because of all the violence and poverty and all the things going on in Jamaica. And what they did is they'd bring the kids in to do an MER set, mental emotion release session, and release the major emotions and work in the study. And they followed the kids for years. And a lot of them, they got jobs, they started feeling so much better, like life was good, they were getting married, they were having children, like they went from being in these gangs to like completely transforming their life and being a normal kind of organized adult, right, in society. So those are the two studies I can think of that are so powerful, that really show like how much these techniques can change your life. So just reach out. Yeah, go to mountainmindtricks.com, and I look forward to hearing from you. And I'm just so excited to get to know you and to serve you and just to hold space for you in this sacred process of the breakthrough session and healing mind, body, spirit. So thank you for listening. I love you. And yeah, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.